Good evening. There's a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about for Erev Pesach Shechalios B'Shabbos, which is the situation we have this year. I'm going to try to give you an overview of as much as I possibly can, Be'ez Hashem, with as much detail as hopefully you'll need. So it might be kedai if there are questions. I'd be very happy to discuss them with you. It might be kedai to save them until afterwards and to maybe after Marav or any time between now and Pesach. I'll be happy to discuss them, but it might be kedai not to discuss them during the shir unless I say something which is blatantly openly wrong. Please, then you can stop me. Okay, so we try to go through what the differences are this year between this year and other years and what's most relevant. So let's start with the din of Tainas Becharos. Tainas Becharos is usually on Erev Pesach, on Yud Daled Nisan, that the firstborn either fast or attend the Siyum in order not to have to fast. So this year Yud Daled Nisan is Shabbos, so we don't fast on Shabbos. And rather than being Koveya the Tainas one day earlier, which would be Erev Shabbos, they were Koveya 2 days earlier, because normally we're not Koveya a Tainas on Friday unless it actually falls out that way. So Tainas Becharos is on Thursday. There is a day in Shulchan Aruch that this year there is no Tainas Becharos, but the Ramah says that the Iker is like the day that says there is Tainas Becharos, and it's on Thursday. So typically a Bechar will go to a Siyum on Thursday. Now there are Achronim that say that, you haven't covered your bases. You can go to a Siyum on Thursday, but then you have to fast Friday. Because there are Achronim that hold that since Friday is right for the Tainas, it's just not the best time, so they made it Thursday. But if you have something that you can't fast Thursday, I'm a Sudas Mitzvah, I have to eat, fine, so eat and fast tomorrow. So it's not Meikar Adin, we don't halacha, we don't hold that. If you fast on Thursday, there's no shaila. Even if you go to a Siyum on Thursday, lahalacha, you're covered. But it's Taka Kedai. Some places what they do is they make a Siyum on Friday as well, so that you can cover your bases l'chaladeis. This year it's particularly easy because Daf Yomi is finishing Maseches Pesachim, and some will be multiple people capable of making a Siyum. So probably Kedai to work out that someone should make a Siyum on Thursday and somebody else to make a Siyum on Friday. But again, lahalacha, as long as you went to a Siyum on Thursday, then you are covered. Okay. B'dikas Chametz. B'dikas Chametz is usually Orla Ba'asar, the night going into the day of Erev Pesach. This year, that would be Friday night. You can't do B'dikas Chametz on Shabbos for, let's just say you can't carry light and carry around the candle. So we do B'dikas Chametz instead 24 hours earlier, Thursday night, or L'Shlosha Asar. But essentially, it's the exact same mitzvah, just moved one day earlier, which means you say a bracha. If you're doing the B'dika Thursday night, you say a bracha as always. And after the B'dika, you say the standard Kol Chamir V'Chamiyah, the first one, which you always say after the B'dika on Yud Daled, you will say this year on Leil Yud Gimel. people that are leaving town and will not be home Thursday night, they're leaving earlier. So the halacha says they should do bedika the last night before they go away. We paskin to do that without a bracha. So again, the same as every year. Make the bedika on Wednesday night or whatever the last night is you'll be in town without a bracha. Now, always after the bedika, any food you're leaving over to eat, because you could eat chametz any year, Erev Pesach in the morning. Some people actually do. And besides which, you probably have the 10 petit and the 10 pieces that you found during the bedika. So it says that you have to put them away carefully to make sure they don't get lost and then obligate you to redo the bedika. This year, you'll probably have more food that you're leaving. We'll speak soon about Suda Shabbos. But you may be leaving over food for Friday, a chametz for Friday, a chametz for Shabbos. So you have to take special care to leave it in a place that it'll be safe and no yadayim zaros will be sholi, but nobody will disappear with it, and it's a place where you'll have to go searching for it once again. Okay, pretty easy so far. Sreifas chametz, the next step. Typically on Erev Pesach, we take the chametz that we found and any other chametz that we have left, and we burn it. Now, so on a regular Erev Pesach, there's a very specific time, at least a very specific final time for the sreifa. We do the sreifa before the end of the 5th hour, because at that point, midrabanan chametz becomes aser b'hana, and you want to do the sreifas chametz while you still own it, and then say the second kol chamira in a regular year and make it batel only after you've burnt whatever you own, so you can make the mitzvah of burning chametz which you own. So you have to make sure to do it before the end of the 5th hour. This year, really, that shouldn't be the case, because you can own chametz and be nana and even eat chametz the entire day, the entire Friday. You're still eating chametz. So technically, sreifas chametz should be able to be done anytime during the day. But lemaisa, here the poskim say, this is let's say the one thing where everybody seems to be maskim, that you should not do differently than you do every year. Sreifas chametz should be done before the end of the 5th hour, shalom yispalbulu, so that people shouldn't think next year they come to sreifas chametz and think, 1 second, last year I did it an hour before Shkia, we have plenty of time, and you'll end up doing it on a real Erev Pesach when it's after the Zman, and that would be problematic. So in order not to create that confusion, the poskim are in agreement that it should be done the regular time. Now, you do the sreifas chametz, but you could still own chametz. You can still keep chametz. You're doing it to be kind of a mitzvah of ein bir chametz ela b'sreifa. And as I said, you're doing it at that time to shalei yisbalbel. But you will not say kol chamira. You don't say kol chamira at that point. It's chulcha v'tchula. I'm keeping chametz. I might have plenty of chametz that I'm still going to be eating that day and the next day. So you don't say kol chamira at that point. You wait for the second kol chamira till sometime later on Shabbos, as we'll Bez Hashem get to. Of course, if a person didn't do sreifas chametz in the morning, you can still do it later. We're not going to say, no, don't do it later, because then you're bad. No, it's lechatchilu. You do it by the zman. If you didn't do it, you still have a mitzvah to, again, as a man says, ein sreifas chametz, ein bir chametz el sreifa, so you're still entitled to do the mitzvah later in the day if you didn't do it earlier. Okay. Now, in terms of mechiras chametz, so in terms of what the average person has to know, is that you should definitely make the arrangements of the Rav the same way you do every year. Meaning, if you're one of the last minute people, so you should definitely look at Thursday as if it's the day before Erev Pesach, as if it's the last minute. Meaning to say, don't wait for Friday afternoon, Friday some late day, and say, oh, I better get in touch with the Rav and sell my chametz. What the Rabbanim will do, that's a need, and that's for them to decide whether they should also do the mechiras chametz at the regular time, not to be mispalbel. Some say yes, some say no. There's no din in mechiras chametz; it's just a convenience. And there are reasons. There are reasons to do it earlier, reasons to do it later. So that's up to the Rabbanim to decide what they're going to do. But every person who's going to be authorizing a Rav to sell his chametz should definitely view it as if the Rav is selling at the regular time, and make sure that he makes his arrangements with the Rav in time. In the event that you didn't, if you realize on Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I never did mechiras chametz, so okay, call the Rav that you did the mechira with and find out if he could still accommodate you, or he'll instruct you what you should do. But as I said, just view it like a regular year. Just make believe that Thursday is the day before Erev Pesach, and that's basically the last full day, last opportunity you have to make arrangements with the Rav for mechiras chametz.
But the sale actually takes place on Shabbos?
No, so there's a lot of need in the Chronim, which Some say yes, some say that way. Kivek says no, you're not allowed to do a sale on Shabbos even if you set it up beforehand. And you're asking, well, why not? I could do malach. I could set up malacha beforehand, and it happens on Shabbos. Why can't I set up a sale? So the Avnei says the difference is because the sale is only chal if the yid is still alive and around. So like the yid is part of it. The malacha goes on. I set up malacha on Friday, and if the person who set it up is gone on Shabbos, the malacha doesn't need him. It goes on its own. A mechira can't happen if the person's gone. So since the person is someone involved in the mechira, so you can't even do it before. So somehow not. There are different ways of doing it, but I don't want. Maybe if you have time at the end, it's really the rabbanim, the rabbanim who are oisek in this to figure out exactly how they're going to do it. Okay, so now we get to the shaila of how to be noig on Shabbos, primarily legabe Suda Shabbos. Like we said already that you're allowed to eat chametz. Before I get to that, what about the din of asiyas malacha? And there's a din of there's an iser or a minhag which is kedin that we don't do malacha on Erev Pesach after chatzos. Malacha meaning we don't do hair cutting and various other types of malacha we don't do, similar to cholamoy, but we don't do malacha Erev Pesach after chatzos. So does that apply this year on Friday or not? So there are two reasons given for the minhag. One reason is because it's a shtickle yomtiv because it's the yom of hakravas hakarban, hakravas karban Pesach. So then that's not negay because the hakravas karban Pesach will be the next day. The other reason is pasha because it's a busy day and we want to make sure that the Chacham wanted to make sure that we get things done that we need to do before Pesach in terms of various forms of beer, chametz, and everything else, and preparing for the Seder. That is still true. There's no shiloh that Friday is still a busy day, and in fact, you want to make sure. You want to keep in mind that whatever preparations can be done for the Seder beforehand that don't have to be done mamish last minute should absolutely be done Friday because obviously you can't do them Shabbos and you don't want to come and say Shabbos and have to first start preparing this and that. So whatever you normally do Erev Pesach, as long as it's something that could last 24 hours, that doesn't need to be done closer to the Zman, should have had to be done Friday. So Friday's still going to be a busy day, similar, maybe not as busy, but similar to a regular Erev Pesach. So according to that reason, it would be kedai, or would follow that the minhag should apply, not to do malacha. But the Mishnah Berurah says the ikar tam seems to be the first time that I mentioned that it's because it's the yom hakravas hakarban, and memela minadin, the maskanas ha'poskim is minadin. It is mutter to do malacha erev Shabbos. Whatever you could do on a regular erev Shabbos, you could do on this erev Shabbos. One who wants to be machmer and treated like the din of erev Pesach and not to do malacha achar chatzos is tavel bracha, but lahalacha it is okay. Okay, now we said you could certainly eat chametz all Friday without any concern. Now, when it comes to Shabbos, so Shabbos you have a chiyuv of gimel sudos, and gimel sudos means the ikar of the suda, at the very least for the first two sudas, the ikar is pas, to be kovei suda al lechem. So the question is how to do that. The main problem is as follows. On Erev Pesach, Yud Daled Nisan, it is usher to eat matzah. That is to say, matzah, which you could be yotzei the mitzvah with at the Seder night, it's usher to eat on Yud Daled Nisan. Why is that? Because it says in order that a person should enter the Pesach, with the te'avin for the mitzvahs for matzah, for achilas matzah, and it should be nicker that achilas matzah is the shem mitzvah. So there's an isser d'Rabbanan to eat matzah on Yud Daled Nisan. Now, when does that isser begin? It definitely applies the entire day, meaning from Amar Shachar on. That's for sure. And in fact, the Mishnah Berurah holds, if you look in Taf Ayin Aleph, the Mishnah Berurah Paskins Itaka only begins in the morning, meaning to say the night before, the night of Erev Pesach, Leil Yudalid, according to the Mishnah Berurah, it's mutter to eat matzah. And some other Acharonim hold that way, but many others hold differently. The Magen Avraham and others hold that no, the Yisr starts the night of Yudalid, and you can't eat matzah starting the night. And the Pasuk say one should be knowing that way, not to eat matzah, any matzah that's kosher l'shem mitzvah, not to eat at all on Erev Pesach. Okay, so if you're going to follow that, in terms of Yisuda Shabbos, matzah is not an option. In any case, it would only be an option Friday night anyway. The kuliyam, it's not an option in the morning. So matzah is not an option. Chametz, okay, so we have three options. Chametz is an option, but of course, it's only an option up to the regular zman of sof achilas chametz on Erev Pesach, which means sof dalet shows. Only the end of the 4th hour. I didn't look up the exact amount I meant to, but it'll be posted. The exact amount will probably be somewhere around 10:30, roughly. Take a look. So you can only eat chametz till that point, which means you have to make sure to finish at least the first suda of the day by that time, or at least finish the chametz, And then this shaila is going to be, well, what to do about shalosh shudas, which as Hashem we'll get to. But so that's one shaila, one question, the chametz. So the options are for the three sudas. At least let's talk about the first two sudas. Option number one is use chametz, which means make a cheshbon of how much you need based on the family size and or the archim you're going to have. How much challah you need to have that everybody can eat approximately a kibetza, a little more than a kibetza, which is a little bit more than 2 kazesim at each of the sudas. We're talking about so for at least the 2 sudas at each of the Friday night suda and the first morning suda, first day suda, and make a cheshbon how much you need and buy enough bake or buy whatever bake in advance or buy enough chametz that you'll have to provide everybody with an amount to fulfill the mitzvah. They recommend try to get, if possible, get something that doesn't create too many crumbs because you want to limit that. But you'll get this challah. You'll eat it very carefully, which means when you sit down, first of all, at the Friday night table, assuming case number one, you're eating in your house, in your regular dining room, so it'll be covered. It may be covered already with the Pesach tablecloth, and on which you'll put your Neiros Shabbos, if you normally put them on the table. That'll go on the Pesach tablecloth, and then you'll cover the table, excluding the Makam Neiros, cover with plastic or other tablecloths on which you'll eat the chametz. You want to make sure not to leave the Neiros on the chametz tablecloth because you're going to want to take it off at some point during the day, and you're not going to be able to move the Neiros. So you'll cover over with the plastic. Eat the chametz very carefully. Eat it over the plastic, and then just fold up the plastic, take it away, or eat it over a napkin or a paper bag, whatever it is, and so that you can minimize the amount of crumbs that disappear. If you have small children in the house, be more makpid on them than you maybe the rest of the year, that they don't take food with them away from the table. Maybe if they're, depending on their age, maybe they shouldn't be given challah altogether. They don't necessarily have to eat challah, they can eat other stuff, we'll talk about. So whatever it is, plan it in advance, knowing your children and yourself and your anxiety level of other members of your household. Figure out exactly what you should do about giving the kids challah, whatever it is. But eat the challah carefully, and when you're done, take the crumbs and take them to the basic kisei and flush them down the toilet. And before you step into the basic kisei, say in your mind, and then go into the bathroom and flush them down the toilet, and you mekayim a mitzvah. And even if you have bigger pieces, let's say especially at the end when you're finished with all the chametz, you have bigger pieces, you can crumble them up on Shabbos. It's not a shal toichin because it was already ground up into flour, so it's ein tochin achatochin. You're allowed to grind it up and flush it down the toilet and get rid of it that way. If there are crumbs on the floor, small crumbs, it's not gefelach. In fact, what it says in halachos is that you take the tablecloth and you shake it out over the floor. That the crumb from crumbs, just crumbs. Of course, crumbs, piruim abatul memela, not big pieces, nothing. You have to any larger pieces. And I don't just mean the size of a snowball. I mean even little pieces bigger than a crumb, something that a person might pick up and put in his mouth, should definitely be taken away and flushed, or that's the best eitzah. But if they're tiny little crumbs, you could, when they end up on the floor, it's not a problem. Sweep the floor also at the end, etc., and get rid of whatever you can. But it doesn't make a difference. They're batlim memela, perum memela batlim. What's that? It's not like it's getting out of the house. Yeah, it doesn't. Right, that's right. Okay, so that would be the first eight. Yes.
The Suda Shabbos should include both the Suda Hayom and Shalosh Shudas.
I'll get them. I think that's Shalosh Shudas. So that would be an eitzah for these two Sudos. And we'll get back soon to give more detail, but I just want to go through the other options. Second option for people who don't want to keep challah in the house and they're afraid, and I should mention also here, you also, after you eat the challah, at least after the last meal of challah, you have to clean out your mouth and your teeth very well. Make sure that there's nothing stuck. And people that have braces or other type of dental, work in their mouth might have a bigger problem with that. So it's something to keep in mind. You could take a dry toothbrush. Don't put any water in it. Don't put any paste on it. You could brush your teeth with a dry toothbrush. Unless you know it's a psik reisha that your gums are going to bleed. You know they always bleed when you brush your teeth, which is probably only brushed like once every month or so. So then you can't do it. But if you brush teeth regularly, you probably don't bleed. Maybe they bleed, but that's not us. It's Davar She'ein Miskaven. Only if it's a psik reisha. Or you could use dental floss. Of course, you can't cut it on Shabbos. To have it, separate the cut pieces or cut them before. And again, also provided it's not a psik reisha, it's going to bleed. But something like that you're going to want to do to clean out your mouth and your teeth from chametz.
Somebody has a considerable amount of chametz left over. Like it's a clog of the toilet. If you put it in the garbage can, put it on the street.
Well, so I'll try to get that. Okay, I'll try to get that. Let me might actually get to the main thing there. Now, another eitzah. Before we get to the second eitzah, what to eat. What many people do is that they don't eat the challah at the actual dining room table. They'll go out, in Chicago they go down to the basement. Here they'll just go outside. Go outside, set up a table outside, and eat the challah out there. Now, typically on Shabbos there's an inyan not to eat over the grass because things could spill and seeds could spill, liquids could spill, but it doesn't necessarily have to be over the grass. Maybe you have a paved area or whatever it is, but that's not an isser. It's not an isser. And so there is an eitzah to go out on your porch or outside and begin the Suda there, make Kiddush there, and Hamotzi there, and eat the shear of Pas, and finish it, and then you could certainly shake the cloth over the ground there, etc., without a problem, and then brush yourself off, make sure there's no crumbs, and then go inside the house and eat the rest of the Su'uda. Now, the post can speak out that if you're saying, well, I know there's a din called Akar Yadav Min HaPas, or see like Yadav Min HaPas, or Akira Shulchanos, there are halachos and hilchos brachos that if you're eating pas, and then you finish the bread, take away the tables, and set up another table and just have eat peros, that you have to make new brachos on the peros. So many posts. So one of the Cheshava Ephod is talking bothered by that here, but many posts, Yashim, Zaman, and many others say it's not a problem. It does not apply here. One quick hezber, Shmuel Felder in his Sefer explains that that's talking about when you're eating peros, which is be'etzim not ba'al alafes as a pas. It's really not part of a suda's pas. If you eat it with the bread, you could pater it. But once you take the bread away and you another table, so it's viewed as a new achila, a new suda, it needs a new bracha. But here, Adarabba, I ate the pas, now I'm eating the dvarim habam balafes the pas. I'm eating the rest of the suda which accompanies the pas. The only thing is, I'm not going to eat any more bread with it. But that's considered all one suda, and the pas is pater. So even though you're not eating more bread, and even if it's tomorrow morning, the morning of Shabbos, and you reach the point where you can't eat more bread, you can't eat chametz, Poskim say it makes no difference. Well, many Gedol Poskim say it makes no difference. You don't have to make any other bracha, and you're allowed to finish the meal inside without a bracha. Benching, though, for Birchas Hamazon, you should go back outside. L'chatchila, if at all possible, you should go back outside, or wherever you ate the pas you should eat. Because the din is that even if you start a bread meal in one place, and then aldas to move to another place, you're allowed to bench in the second place only if you ate some bread in the second place. It doesn't have to be a kazayis, but it has to be some bread. Here, the whole point of doing this is not to bring any bread with you. Now, one possible eitzah is even if you leave bread in your mouth, it's good enough. And I saw this, I heard Shlomo Miller on a recording today said this. As long as you leave bread in your mouth even and go inside and finish eating it inside, then you could bench there. It's lechatchila. But some people, no bread in the house. We don't want to deal with that. Whatever it is. So if you're not going to eat any bread at all in the house, then lechatchila you need to go back outside when it comes to bench and bench in the original place where you washed and ate, or where you ate the bread.
Kiddush should be outside.
Yes, kiddush should be outside, but welcome the pas. Now the other nakud that makes it a little bit more difficult is that really you should be lighting neros there as well, at least there, because if that's when you're making kiddush and having an ikasudas pas, you really should have neros Shabbos there. So if you go back to Chicago and you're in the basement, so there's kavalis, you light the neros in the basement carefully. Here, lighting outside might be a little bit more challenging. You certainly don't want to light the neros 18 minutes before Shkia, and then your wife goes inside and nobody's watching those neros for the next hour till you come home, and who knows, you hope nobody will be watching by the time you come home. So it's not a good idea to leave the neros unattended. So that's something you have to think about. And even if somebody could stay out and watch them, you have to think what's practical. But that would be proper to have neros out there. And if you have neros inside as well, you can split up the neros. If you can't, so if you're just right outside, like you're right outside your dining room, and you could see the neros from where you're eating, so that's also okay. Otherwise, at least minimally, if you have you have some sort of electric light out there, or you wouldn't be eating mamish in the dark. That's not right to do. So turn on the electric light after Plaga Mincha. L'kavet Shabbos. Have in mind l'kavet Shabbos. There's some holes you don't see the mitzvah even mamish with electric lights, but it's certainly we're relying on it for this if you need to do that.
Would seeing the candles also help you for benching? Let's say you could see the candles. Would you now be able to bench in that room, or that has nothing to do with benching?
No. There is a din of ched. The ched is seeing the first place, but again,
Are you required to go back down to the basement for Birchas Hamazon?
Yes, you are. Unless you eat some bread upstairs, yes, you have to go back down to the basement. Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, it just occurred to me, some people here might be going to the East Coast, going to the north, and the taka might even be okay. Okay. Now the second option, if you want to avoid the challah, you don't want any challah in your house, so then the second possibility is using matzah ashira, egg matzahs. Why is that possible? Because egg matzahs are one cannot be yotzei the mitzvah of achilas matzah with, and we said the only isser of achilas matzah in Erev Pesach is matzah that you can be yotzei at night. Matzah ashira you cannot be yotzei. I'll just say very quickly, parenthetically, Shlomo Miller was machmer. He said it's only if you use egg matzahs made from grape juice, because if they're made from any other meiperos, then according to Shitas Harambam they are kosher for the seder, and memela you can't eat them Erev Pesach. Okay, we don't pass it the Rama, but it's a chumrah. And second of all, if they're made with other meiperos other than yayin and other grape juice, they're not chayiv in haparshas challah. And according to the Marach Zarua, he said, according to the Marach Zarua, they never have a din lechem. You can never wash if it's not chayiv in challah. You can never wash even if you suda. So he said, if you want to use egg matzahs, good to hate, but they have to be with grape juice. So if somebody wants to make a lot of money real quick, you know, parsing this and get out there, make some grape matzahs. He said a few days ago, it could be too late. But anyway. I never saw anybody say that before, meaning to say, the Sfarim seem to go along with regular egg matzah. Moshe Shuvah talks about matzah shira. He doesn't say what he means, but he doesn't mention this. And it seems to be that most who allow egg matzahs are talking about the ones you get in the store made from apple juice. Okay, so now the thing is though that egg matzah is normally mazonos. If you sit down right now and eat a piece of egg matzah, you would make mazonos. So how's it good for lechem mishnah? How's it good for hamotzi? So the answer is it's possible b'kisnin, and you could be kovei sud on it. If you could be kovei sud on it, then it gets the status of lechem gomor legabe the sud. Then you have to wash and motzi and bench, and you could use it for lechem mishnah. Question is though how much you have to eat in order to do that. So that's a big shiloh. If you just eat egg matzah, if you want to sit down right now during the week and eat egg matzah with nothing else, you'd have to eat an awfully large shear in order to wash and bench. Very large shears. Machlokas poskim, some say it's 22 beitzim, so all different shear, but it's very large shear. You're not going to want to do it. But if you eat it with other machalim, once you eat the egg matzah with other machalim, then the shear is much lower. And as a machlokas poskim, what is the shear? Rav Moshe in one shuvah says the shear is similar to what you would eat for bread, an equivalent amount that you eat for. He's talking l'chumra. He's saying, when you go to a chasna and you don't want to wash, so he said, but you want to fill up, so I'll have some cake and then I'll eat the soup. He says you haven't accomplished anything. If you eat cake with the shear that you would eat bread and then you eat a whole meal, you have to wash and bench, even if you just ate like a kibbutz of cake. So the same thing he says here with the egg matzah would just require one kibbutz, which is less than a piece. They say about half a piece of egg matzah. They say would be enough. And in addition, Rav Moshe has a tshuva about Erev Pesach, if you want to look in Chelek Aleph, Siman Kuf Nun Hey, where he says that on Shabbos especially, because Suda Shabbos is Koveya, Suda Shabbos gives it a chashivas, and even if you won't accept normally, but on Shabbos, Suda Shabbos, avad, it has a status of lechem gomer when you eat it as part of the Suda, and you only need a small amount, about a half a sheet. And this is what some say. However, many are cholik on this. They're cholik on both of these tshuvas. They hold year round. It's not enough to eat just one kibbutz. You have to eat at least 3 or 4 beitzim. Even if you're having with other machalim, in order to wash and bench, it has to be gimel adal beitzim, which Moshe is about 2 pieces of egg matzah, 2 full pieces. Rabbi Ida Sevi says it's 3 pieces, but I know you can try to figure it out yourself mathematically, scientifically, but most say it's about 2 pieces of egg matzah you would eat. And they're also cholik in Rav Moshe's other tshuva. They say Suda Shabbos doesn't make a difference here without going into the different svaras. So many are cholik on this Rav Moshe, and they hold. So you want to eat egg matzah, but it would have to be, as I said, it would have to be a shear of at least 2 matzahs for each Suda. Particularly, as jumping ahead, we'll talk about shalosh shudas. If you're eating shalosh shudas in the morning, which we'll explain in a minute, which according to most shittas, you're not even going to be yotzei, you're just doing it l'chumra because maybe, then for sure you don't even have Rav Moshe's svara about Suda Shabbos Koveya because it's most likely not a Suda Shabbos. And so for sure then, you would be on thinner ice if you ate anything less than 2 pieces. But if you want to eat that amount, or if you want to samech on the Rav Moshe's and eat less, this is an option. The advantage is as follows. Egg matzah, Ashkenazim don't eat egg matzah on Pesach either. We treat it kemat, like chametz, legabe achila. But kemat, not mamish, meaning there's definitely no isser of val yira val matzah. You're allowed to own egg matzah, and even cholim muskenim are allowed to eat it, even if you're minig Ashkenaz. It's not chametz, it's just a minute not to eat it because of a chash. So true. On Erev Pesach, after that, we don't. Whatever time you have to stop eating chametz, we pass you have to stop eating egg matzah too. That's the consensus of most achronim, not like Nadi Behuda. You have to stop eating egg matzah at the same time you stop eating regular chametz. But still, the advantage is you don't have to be so concerned or I'll use the word nervous about crumbs because it's not chametz. There's no isbal yira, and like I said, if a child takes a piece and he runs off somewhere and you can't find it, who cares? It's nothing. There's no bal yira by matzah, an egg matzah. You're allowed to own it. So and you don't have to worry so much about crumbs, etc. So some people prefer to do that. They don't want any chametz in the house. They want to run the risk of losing a challah roll or the children and the braces and everything. If you get a piece of egg matzah in your braces, you also try to get it out, but it's not the same chomer. You're not dealing with a shash, chefs of currents. Okay, so that's eitzah number 2. Eitzah number 3, I'll just mention briefly, which l'chara should be the most pashit and simplest eitzah, and which would help even for shalosh shudis bisman, would be matzah mevusheles. The halacha says matzah mevusheles you're not yotzei at the seder. If you cook the matzah in a kli rishon, you put the matzah in a kli rishon of mayim cham sheyatz lettuce bow. You're not yotzei at the seder. So if you're not yotzei at the seder, I should be able to eat it at Erev Pesach. So and may like do it Friday night, Shabbos morning, and I can even eat shalosh shudis in the afternoon at the regular time of shalosh shudis and sit down. And I say, what's the bracha though? Is the bracha hamotzi amatzah mevusheles? So the answer is as long as it's still a kazayis. Yes, if you take pas gomer, a kazayis a pas, and you boil it or you put it in hot water in a kli rishon, as long as it comes out of kazayis, it's still a hamotzi. If it breaks up, then not. But if it stays intact as a kazayis, it's still a hamotzi. So you do it beforehand. Obviously, you can't do it on Shabbos. You put the matzahs for 30 seconds in hot water, yatsu lettuce water in a kli rishon, and take it out carefully, and you've got your thing. And so some say to do this. Now, the Magen Avraham in Taf Mem Dalet brings the Maril that says l'chari you could use matzah mevusheles in Erev Pesach, avo lo nogu kain. And the Shulchan Aruch says lo nogu kain. Okay, we'll get to Gebrach. Who said that? Oh, okay, we'll get to Gebrach in a second. Thank you. What is Gebrach? No. We'll explain it in a minute. So why is it lo nagu kain? So Rabbi Price will say, hey, Gebrach. So I'll just tell you very quickly. When I was a bacher, my mother, she lived very well. When she used to make Pesach at home, she would make these delicious rolls. We did eat Gebrachs. So she would make these delicious rolls with matzah meal and whatever, egg, sugar, and we would eat them on Pesach. So I was wondering one year if I could eat them. I was a young buck. Could I eat them Erev Pesach? The Mishnah Berurah says you can eat kneidlach. You can eat kneidlach on Erev Pesach because it's boiled matzah, just like we just said matzah mevusheles. Certainly kneidlach, which is broken up into small pieces, made into balls, you can eat it on Erev Pesach. Lechatchila, according to the Mishnah Berurah. So I was masupik if these rolls, the way they made in oil, or they like kneidlach, and I can eat them out. So I called Rav Moshe Bick, and I asked him, can I eat these rolls in Erev Pesach? So he said no. So I said, they're not like kneidlach? He said, we don't eat kneidlach Erev Pesach. So I said, it's a young bachur with the chosva said, but the Mishnah Berurah says you could eat kneidlach Erev Pesach. I said, we don't eat kneidlach Erev Pesach. So later, someone told me he meant gebrachs. Some of that's why he meant. I don't know if that's what he meant or not. But anyway, that's the Ma'aser Shahaya Kinoi. So L'Maisa, though, I will tell you that I saw first in the Sefer Erev Pesach Shabbos, and then Rosh Shlomo Miller said the same thing. That l'chayra, he said, even those who don't eat gebrachs in Pesach, it is mutter to eat them on Erev Pesach. And he said it's more kal than Achron Shal Pesach. If you eat gebrachs in Achron Shal Pesach, kol shekain you eat gebrachs in Erev Pesach. Why is it more kal? You'll say, no, it's not more kal. I mean, this is the Rabbanan. That's Shaila, something the rice or whatever it is. He said, no, but there's no Isser Mashu in Erev Pesach. Why don't some people eat gebrachs? Because maybe there's a Mashu of Kamach that didn't get baked and it'll touch the water and become Chum. It's just a Mashu. So on the last day of Pesach, there's still an Isser Mashu, but since it's Achron Shal Pesach, whatever the svaras are, they make a Erev Pesach, there's no Isser Mashu. So he said, for sure it should be to eat gebrachs even on Erev Pesach. Okay, that notwithstanding, I imagine those who have a minute not to won't and don't. So, but I'm talking to people who don't have the minute or who want to learn Torah Lishma anyway. So, but the poskim say lo nogu kain. So, just very bekitz, if you just want to take a look at the Chacham Shlomo on the daf of the Shulchan Aruch and Taf Ayin Aleph, he wants to tell you that it's usher. It's usher to eat matzah mevusheles or Pesach. It's only mutter if it's broken up into small pieces. But as long as there remains a kazayis, he has a tzad to say you could be yotzi at the seder, even though it's mevushel. You could look into it. Maybe that's the reason. Whatever it is, most poskim say lo nogu kain. We don't use matzah mevusheles. Kneidlach, yes. And granted, the Mishnah Berurah Taf Ayin Aleph says you could eat matzah mevusheles and you could eat kneidlach, but he still doesn't give it as an eitzah for the Sudas on Shabbos. Maybe because the Maril and others said not to. Whatever it is. So I know there are some that do it. I believe I was in Chicago, the Talmidim or Rabbi and Salvation, that's what they all did. They said that's what the Rebbe held they should do. I know Rabbi Yosef also paskins to do that, but it's not a widespread need. Okay, so now let's get into
What's the bracha of Knedalach on this?
Knedalach is Mazonos for sure. Knedalach, even if you eat many of them, it's still Mazonos because it's not Torah Lechem anywhere. It's not possible B'Kissin. You would never wash and bench in Knedalach. Okay, but now by the way, if you do eat Knedalach or Matzah V'Shelas, you still should be careful to stop eating certainly any substantial amount after the 9th hour, the beginning of the 10th hour, because you know, Erev Pesach, you're not supposed to fill yourself on these things.
Pesach rolls, you would make hamotzi that? Like matzah meal?
I tried to ask for a bit. It depends on the recipe. It depends how they're made. So now let's talk about Shalosh Shudas. Now, Shalosh Shudas. So if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, the Shulchan Aruch says that you don't have to leave over any chametz, on Erev Pesach Shabbos. Leave over 2 sudas. For the third suda, he says you don't leave any because you're not going to be outside. It's impossible to eat bread for Shalosh Shudas. Why? Because the Mechaber paskins in Hilchos Shabbos and Reish Tzadi Aleph Siv Beis that Suda Shlish, Shalosh Shudas has to be after 6.5 hours in the day. If you eat it before 6.5 hours, you're not Yotzei. By 6.5 hours, that's it. That's Pesach Chatzos. There's no way to eat matzah then, and there's no way to eat chametz then. What happened to matzah mevushelas? The Shulchan Aruch leaves it out. But you can't eat matzah and you can't eat chametz. So memela, you have no eitzah. So the Ramah says you have to be Yotzei Shalosh Shudas with peiros, or better yet, basar v'dagim. If you look in Hilchos Shalosh Shudas, it says the best thing is bread. Otherwise, mizonos. Otherwise, basar v'dagim. Otherwise, peiros. So the Ramah says over here either basar v'dagim or peiros. The Mishnah Berurah says, or you could use knedlach or other similar products that you could eat for Shalosh Shudas. But again, eat it before 10 hours in the day. After 6.5 hours, before 10 hours in the day. 10 hours, I think, is about 4:30 approximately. Eat it before that's mine. So so that's the Iker Kiyam Shalosh Shudas. Now, if you look, by the way, in the Bir Agra in Taf Mem Dal that he brings from the Zohar says there's no Chiyuv Shalosh Shudas on Erev Pesach, which Shechal Shabbos, because there's nothing you can eat. That's he says he brings from the Zohar. That's where Shimon Yochai would be, I'd say, with Talmud Torah, and there's nothing else you can do. But but Lamaisa, the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah says eat, like I said before, eat something in the afternoon, basar v'dagim or Paris. And then the Magen Avraham brings a minhag, and the Bria Gra says you should be naughty like this, and the Mishnah Berurah brings it down, and that is to be choshesh for the Rashitas that say you could be Yotzei Shalosh Shudas in the morning. There are days that say you could, and particularly Erev Pesach, Shabbos, when you can't do it in the afternoon with Pas. So there are those that say that you could be Yotzei in the morning. And so what's the Maila? The Maila is that there is a day in Shulchan Aruch that you're only Yotzei with bread. So there's a day that says you're only Yotzei with bread. So you can't have bread in the afternoon. And so since there's a day that says you could be Yotzei in the morning, so try to chaparain and eat bread in the morning as Shalosh Shudas during the time that you're still allowed to eat chametz. Eat more challah or more egg matzah, whichever one you're using. So how do you do that? So the shuls, all the minyanim daven early, daven stam and nates, and then you go home, and right away you make kiddush and have the first suda. The first suda is a small suda. It consists of the bread that you're eating and fish or something else like that. Particularly if you're eating egg matzah, make sure that it's not just egg matzah, because you don't want to eat 22 kazesim. So or 22 kazesim. So make sure to eat something else. Eat dagim or something. But even if you're having real challah, don't just make a challah. Add something to the suda, some fish or something else. Then bench. And then you have to make a hefsek. You can't just wash again. You have to make a hefsek, particularly because it's very questionable if when you're about to wash again, eat shalosh shudas. It's very questionable for Yotzei. Most shittas hold you not Yotzei. You're just doing it to be Yotzei, chaparayim, like those shittas. So you definitely have to make a real head. You can't say, well, it's a big tzarech mitzvah. I could be memayed on. It don't make it Yotzei schar, behefsedo. So you have to make a break. Because Anish writes a half hour. Some want to say a little bit less. Certainly, if it's going to be less than that, you should at least be with Starfield with a walk around the block or whatever. Go out. Don't just stay in one place. Go out. Be mafsik in a significant way, and then wash again. Eat the challah or egg matzah, and again you're eating it carefully over the plastic or over the paper, etc., etc., and then finish that by the zman of self dalet shos, and then clean out your mouth, clean out your teeth, and everything. Get rid of all the chametz, flush it away, etc., etc. Shake things out, everything we said before, and then you can relax and start eating the Suda. The Suda now will consist of, nice hot machalim made on Pesach Dika Kalim. You'll take away the plastic tablecloth. Okay, now you have everything's Pesach Dik, and that's it. The chametz is behind you for another week, and everything is Pesach Dik. In general, I just want to add, it's kedai not to use your chametz Dika Kalim in general for any of the Sudas this Shabbos, because you're going to have a problem cleaning them. The Shulchan Aruch says that you can't wash, if you have a pot or other things, even if the meluchach with chametz, you can't wash it because of a shayla of tircha and achana of every Shabbos. If there's no way, if it's really chametz and there's no way to get it off, so then it's best to have a guy wash it for you, and if you can't, so it's mutter to wash it a little bit just to get off the chametz. But it's a bit of evid. So, and certainly if it's not chametz, if your pot is dirty or your plates, but it's your chametz stick of kalim, but you made potatoes, you made whatever, and they're dirty, your chicken, they're dirty, but it's not chametz, then for sure you can't wash it because there's no mitzvah b'yachah, nothing. So it's not kedai b'chlal to be mishtamish with chametz stick of kalim. You should try to use paste stick of kalim, and then even at night, even the Suda at night, when you finish the bread, get rid of the bed, and then bring out everything else and paste the kalim. You could use disposables. It's fine to use disposables for cutlery and for places like that. So you can be made in the tircha, be made. You don't walk into Pesach with a stack of dirty Pesach dishes. That's fine to do, etc. Okay, but now get.
Why is Eitzah having 2 meals better than the Paris of the Rama?
It's not better. So let me stress that. Even if you're splitting the suit in the morning, you still must eat in the afternoon. It's not a question of better. It's a question of chapping around. Since there is a shita says you're only yotzi with pas, so I want to try to be yotzi that shita. Maybe I'm yotzi in the morning, maybe not. Don't rely on it. And chanami, it's nobody says to do only that. It's in addition. Glad you make sure I clarify that. It's in addition to eating the peiros or the basar v'dagim in the afternoon. You're doing this in the morning.
What time in the afternoon should Shabbos be?
After half hour after chatzos plus till about 4:30 till Esther Shabbos between.
But if you have Paris, you can keep it.
You could, yeah, but I'm not starting with the Erev Pesach learners. Right, you could, but you have to be careful, not too much, not to fill up. Okay.
Is there any need to eat social the doctor after mikvah? You should the doctor try to eat the after mikvah?
You mean the pairs? It's really never necessary to do it halacha. If you're in night that way, fine, but it's not necessary halacha. Now, so I wanted to say that. Okay. Now, so a couple of other points that. No, thank you. Okay, very good. Thank you. After you finish the challah or the egg matzah or whatever, and it's you're switching to Pesach. Thank you very much. You make sure to say the second kol chamir v'chamia. The chazite, the la chazite, the be'arte, the la be'arte. You really have till the end of till another hour, but obviously you should do it right away. And there's nothing to remind you. I couldn't even remember now. There's nothing to remind you, to do it before the end of the 5th hour. So make sure once you get rid of the chametz, so say right there, kol chamir v'chamia, and be finished with that. Shaila, let's say you're mitzamsem, you're using challah, but you're being mitzamsem, and you bought very little, so you don't have a lot of lechem mishnah. Are you allowed to be mitzaref a matzah? Matzah shel Pesach, matzah shel mitzvah. You're allowed to be mitzaref that for lechem mishnah. So the Chazon Ish says you're allowed to. It's edible. You can't eat it, but children could eat it. So it's not usher to everyone. So you could mitzaref it. You can even leave it in a bag. Say leave it in a bag. Lechem mishnah in a bag. You're supposed to have all 10 fingers on the pas. L'maisa, the person can say. Kamal can say it's okay to do that. You remember Makom later if you want, but there's Rabbi Yashin does say it's fine to do that. You can leave it in the bag. Some people, he said you can do it all year round. And have the lechem mishnah that way. This way you keep.
It's never allowed to have matzah with challah
Okay, but the halach can do it. The shali say, well, maybe it's muksa. Maybe the matzah is muksa because. You're not, you wouldn't eat. So the Prima Godim Taka wants to say that matzah shel mitzvah for Leil Seder is taka muktzah. But the post can say that's talking about if, number one, you only have like a mitzumsim dik number of matzahs, that you need them all for the Siddharim. So you would not give them a time. I will not feed this to my child. I need it for the matzah shel mitzvah. So then taka might be muktzah. Or if you spent a lot of money buying certain specific chabur matzahs or whatever they are from such and such a hechsher, and dafka the Seder, you bought yourself 2 kazesim or whatever it is just for the Seder, and there's no way you would feed it, to talk about nervin, there's no way you'd feed any of that to your children, so then those are taka muksa. But Baruch Hashem, we usually have plenty of matzah, which is kosher for Pesach, which is we're not mitzamsem, and so that you could be mitzaref as a lechem mishnah. If you're using challah, now, so we said if you're using egg matzah, then obviously you use 2 egg matzahs. If you're using challah, you should not be mitzaref an egg matzah to lechem mishnah, because it's only as a din lechem if you're being kavei sudan, you're eating it to kavei sudan. If you're dafka not eating it, you're just eating the lechem, so then pulling out an egg matzah would not would not be an eitzah. Okay, just one or two other points. Okay, first of all, in terms of what you could eat in the on the Erev Pesach in the afternoon, so we said that certainly those who are in Makban and Gebrachs, and maybe even those who are, but certainly those who aren't could eat matzah mubushelis, kneidlach and the like. But to eat something where has matzah meal in it, which was not boiled, it was simply mixed with chocolate and oil and sugar and whatever, and made into a cookie or a cake or whatever, even fried in a little bit of oil, but not boiled in water. That is not kedai. The Ramah says in Taf Ayin Aleph that you should not eat that. There are mekilim because the shaila is whether you could be yotzei the mitzvah. Could you yotzei matzah's mitzvah with a bar of chocolate brownie. So it's not pashut. You could be yotzei. It's a shaila. So, but lemaisa legabe the din of Erev Pesach, you should not eat that. You can give it to small children. Small children who aren't any day of a sibitz Mitzrayim, they're allowed to eat matzah mamish Erev Pesach. Certainly, you can give them things like that, but preferably an adult should not eat anything like that. Okay, maybe there's the last thing. I just want to give me to think one second, because there was something on my mind regarding the splitting the Suda, which I might have overlooked. Let me just look here quickly. I don't want to leave out. Okay, well, so maybe just get back to what Rabbi Subar asked before. Legabe bir chametz. Let's say you have chametz left over. It's more than a little bit. You don't want to put it in the basic case. You're afraid of plumbing issues and whatever else you're afraid of. So there's a whole shayla, and this gets back to what we were discussing before, the mechiras chametz. How is the mechira going to work this year? Is the mechira going to be chal at at 11 o'clock Friday morning and that's it? Well, that's problematic because then people are going to be buying chametz. People may be buying chametz Friday afternoon yet, and using it, they might be buying challah rolls and using them for Shabbos. So how's that nichlal l'mechira? Maybe they won't finish it. Maybe it'll be left over. So maybe the mechira bichal sho'achas kodem Shabbos. Okay, that's possible. But then if it is, so then what about the food that the chametz you're going to eat on Shabbos? So you sold it to the guy and you're eating it. So the one eitzah would be pashut to ask rishus, sell to the guy and say, but you should have a yadolach that the number of people are going to want to eat some of it over the next 24 hours. Is that okay with you? And he'll stomach give rishus, and that would be one eitzah. Other eitzahs too is that they're mishayir, they're mishayir that anything, the masna, anything that's going to be eaten on Shabbos is not nichal l'mechira, and what's not going to be eaten is nichal l'mechira. So they talk about prayer, it's all right, and you can look in the svarim how to do it. One way or the other, it does seem that the chametz that you're eating Shabbos morning is nichal l'mechira. So technically speaking, you should really just, if you have something left over, or you served your children a box, cereal, you should really be able to just put it back into the closet, where you have the chametz of the guy, and it's part of the mechira. One way or the other, unless Hakadosh says they're doing something else here, but pashtus that one mechira, however they do the mechira, it's going to be nichal. Lemais, if you don't want to do that, and you want to get rid of it, there's no other way. Putting it in garbage cans which belong to you is not a good eitzah if it's be'en. If they don't belong to you, then the pasuk mamati. But if they belong to you, then it's not an eitzah, unless you make it ein roy lachila. If you pour bleach on it or something else to make it mamish pasal lachilas kelev, so then you can do it. Then it's not a problem. But if you don't do that, then you should not leave it in the cans.
We're all talking about big pieces with the garbage can. What about little small crumbs?
Don't worry about it.